Morning. Although it's he didn't see that. But it's a little after 2 o'clock in the morning. I have a cat fussing around me because basically she thinks it's time to be fed. Feeding her, she'll be hungry again at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But she doesn't seem to understand that, and there's a lot of humans like that these days. I meant to merely... I went to bed at 10 o'clock because I was really tired. Wow, that's unusual for me, I know. And then, well... lighting experiment. God. That's slightly less intense. And then I received a message from one of the few remaining family members who I do communicate with. My Uncle Nick, last surviving of my father's brothers, of which he had 4. God. Was a major influence on me when I was a teenager. He was an early pioneer of YouTube. YouTube didn't piss and exist back then. What am I talking about? He was an early pioneer of computing. Some of the first computer games I ever remember playing were around in Nick's bedroom at my grandmother's, my dad's mum, at the static caravan park, what you Americans would call a trailer park, but it was a bit more upmarket, all right, honestly. He had a Spectrum, and I think he had a BBC Micro before that. He had a Lord of the Rings art poster, the familiar standard one. Many of you might know that. Just Google Lord of the Rings posters, and this classic one will probably come up on his wall. I remember playing things that are quite complex for the time. Submarine Simulation. It was my first taste of Elite before it became the game Elite Dangerous that we know today as gamers. This must have been late 1980s, I would think. His taste in films and novels probably shaped the nerd I am today. Cheers, Nick. No, honestly, I do thank him for that. Quite a lot of what I am is down to his unintentional influence. I don't think Nick ever intended. Nick has the same traits in a way as I do. He's very enthusiastic about what he's enthusiastic about, and it can draw you in, and I think maybe this is what happened. Yeah, I've always gotten on with Nick. So when muddle ups happen like last night, it does kind of like get to me, because you know, obviously my father passed away last year. His oldest brother Tony was 5 years ago, I think. Anyway, it was a while ago. I think he passed away before COVID. Yeah, that's become a landmark thing, that has, isn't it? A lot of people discuss, you know, time spans as in post or pre-COVID, but it was a landmark in our history. Still a fiercely debated one at times. But yeah. And as for Nick's elder brother, so the third youngest, Richard, he committed suicide when I was a teenager, maybe early 20s. Yeah, again, the time period is a bit fuzzy. My mother had to deal with him through his crises because his mother couldn't cope, and my dad did not want to know. Commentary my father shares with my brother, who doesn't want to know. Nick is the only close family member I have left that still communicates with me, but we miscommunicated majorly last night. This happens between Nick wouldn't admit it, I don't think, but he pretty much is on the spectrum himself. So miscommunications between people who are on the spectrum can be absolutely massive. And once they start, they keep going until someone gets very blunt and honest about it. Luckily, I'm a specialist at that one. Yeah. I mean, it's basically like someone where I do volunteer work. Ipswich Community Hub. Plug. Someone there, we were having a discussion about things, and she mentioned, you subtle. Nah. Went, yeah, even when I'm trying to be subtle, I'm really not being subtle that much. She went, yes, Howard. I don't get no bullshit with me. And it's pretty obvious when I'm trying, because I'm absolutely shite at it. So yeah, Nick. Many of you who are on my Facebook would have seen the sewing machine that I was looking for, because my father worked at PPG that used to be ICI. He'd been working, long service award, he'd worked there for well over half his working life. And this used to be ICI, obviously Dulux Paints. They're not sponsoring me. I'm too small. I'm too small. They won't hear me. And basically, Ipswich Community Hub are taking over a new building that is going to become a sound studio for musicians, filmmakers, etc., etc. If you go to their website, you will see all the details, because this is not going to be completely free. It's going to be affordable, but not free. And we need paints and other stuff to decorate it. And I went bing, because obviously working there, Dad got a lot of very heavily discounted and or free paints. I won't talk about that. And there's half a dozen good quality kind of like matte whites, silk whites, wood varnish, etc., etc. under the kind of like cubby hole that's under the stairs. And as when I dragged that out, behind that I saw something I thought my mother had given away years ago. Rather an ancient piece of family history, as it turns out. A 1917 Singer electric sewing machine. Yep, it was probably one of the first ones manufactured in Scotland. On the Singer website, Michelle put the serial number in and found out the exact date of manufacture and where it was manufactured. So I think my father's mother's family, because it must have been perhaps her great-grandmother that bought it, were very well off. Because to be able to afford one of the first electric sewing machines, you must have been well off. Lucky them, eh? Because Nick is interested in family history and he remembers the sewing machine because I texted him, I was trying to phone him to talk to him about it. Didn't happen. So I wake up to 2 o'clock this morning because I'd mentioned the fact that it could have substantial monetary value, but it is not for sale at any price. You couldn't pry that machine from Michelle's cold, dead fingers. Her soul would come back from the grave and probably violently murder you to take it back. You don't mess with my partner. I won't tell you what she said would happen if shitbag Steve downstairs harmed her cat in any way. That is censored, but I think you can probably guess. I'd give her the blunt instruments. I'm going to move to the kitchen briefly because I need my second coffee. Oh. Dark in here, isn't it? As Death from Terry Pratchett once said. Thought I heard you. Hello. Hello, Alex. Hello. Yeah, she still wants feeding, but she can wait till about 5 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, she'll be bugging us, as I said. That stupid, early afternoon, wouldn't you, for your bickies? I might give her some treats in a minute. Must have left my necklaces off in the bathroom. I always feel naked without them. I mentioned the monetary value to Nick, substantial, in text messages, because he was too busy with his partner and his dog and various other things to actually reply to or make time for a phone call last night. But he messaged me on FB with, "Whatever you do, don't sell it." By Michelle's reaction, I don't think that would be good for your relationship. But I'm thinking, Nick, man, I'm not that emotionally insensitive. I mean, I have my moments, but it kind of offended me that he thinks I would do that. But that, you see, he didn't give me time to communicate my full intentions and made rather a snap judgment, which is something that runs in the family, unfortunately. I mean, I've messaged him back and sorted it all out, and I did get a little bit curt by basically saying misunderstanding my intentions is something. Oh, there we go. Hello. It's something that seems to have, happen a lot with what's left of my family. I mean, my mother, with her anxiety and her early stage senile dementia, it's easy for her to misunderstand me for obvious reasons. As for my younger brother, well, oh, snotty. Excuse me. As for my younger brother, he will always jump to the worst possible case scenario. Yeah, that's an autistic trait, but he would never admit to it. Shh. I don't think he watches YouTube, so we'll keep that amongst ourselves. Hi. And that becomes his core belief about what my intentions or anybody else's intentions are. I think from what my mother said, who can be very wise at times. Oh, she was telling a wonderful story. I had her on speaker and it was making Michelle smile. Because the sewing machine, yeah, less said about Brandon the better probably. But the sewing machine brought so many memories back to the surface in Mum. It was quite a joy to hear her reminisce. When she gets in the zone, my mother can be a very wonderful lady. Where did I put the tobacco? Up there. She really can. In that I forget exactly what relation he was, but she was talking about Uncle Owen, who was yet again on the Kell side of the family, but I think he married into it. I'm not sure. He was an ex-sailor, so that tells you something to start with. And, well, he was notorious for getting absolutely blasted whenever he was home on leave. Even on his wedding day, apparently he was so drunk he couldn't stand up and was merrily singing to himself about how much he loved his wife. I think maybe he was blood family, actually, because that sounds like quite a lot of my family, including me. But I'm like shitbag Steve downstairs, and most of us, unless provoked, intentionally or unintentionally, happy-go-lucky drunks. We're happy-go-lucky scamps. Yes, it's the old Irish accent. I know it works. So yeah, and how basically we think the camphorwood chest that came from the Orient or Southeast Asia somewhere was actually something that Owen brought back after his duties at sea. And she can remember the tale that my father told her. I think it was Dad. She was a little bit confused, but the story was wonderful. About how Owen came back with this chest, came off the ship, and he was in a hurry to go get a drink because he never drank when he was on duty, but when he got off duty, he could drink most people under the table, and apparently his wife could as well. Is this really something I should be proud of? Oh, I like it. I bet it was a lot. I bet there was a lot of quaffing involved. It's kind of where you spill as much as you drink. For those who don't understand, it's a very Vikinger thing to do. And apparently, Dad met Owen off the ship with this, and he was struggling with this thing. and he put it down on a random stranger's car bonnet just to rest. And when he picked it up, he noticed there was a huge dent in it, and he just turned around to my dad and said, "Quick, Chris, we're running." And they had to run carrying this chest to get away from the angry car owner. And it was wonderful to hear her light up and her anxieties just drop away as she talked about this. It did her a lot of good. And Michelle was smirking hearing this. So yeah, it's all good, I guess. I do have a new toy. Finally own my own sword again. Well, what I mean by that is my own period relevant sword. Yes, it is a reenactment ready replica of the Sutton Hoo sword. It's from a company in Toledo in Spain. I think I'm pronouncing that right. They do wall hangers, yes, but this is reenactment ready. It is marvellously, get it in picture when you're talking about it. It is marvellously light and wieldable. Amazing quality. And I am rather as much awe-inspired by this as Michelle is that sewing machine. Look at the beauty in that blade. But, you know, at the end of the day, wow, there's going to be some practice training videos later at some point, I have to say. Right, you can sit there when we go. But basically, I mean, I've got two other blades. One is a medieval one. One is something else. But this is right for the period. I'm more of an axe and spear person. This is historically true. Most swords were status symbols and sidearms. If you resorted to your sword, things weren't going well. Yeah. Yeah, my family history is quite eclectic, but dark in places. I mean, my grandfather, my dad's father, was rather a talented individual. He was a lifelong RAF aircrew. You know, he kept those planes flying. Lancasters, Spitfires, Hurricanes. And apparently at the time, most aircrew either specialised in airframe or electronics. Grandad could do both, which made him quite exceptional. He never went beyond warrant officer because he didn't want the hassle of anything higher. And he won the George Medal for Bravery. This is one of the highest awards issued in the British military for gallantry, conspicuous gallantry, because I looked at the website. Not in the face of the enemy, because he won it during an air raid on the RAF base he was stationed at the time, I believe. The details are a bit sketchy, but somewhere there are details. They will be found. Because myself and Uncle Nick we still have his medals and tunic, and his documents, and his old vintage engineering set, complete with calipers and stuff like that. It's a beautiful set. And well, sorry, brain freeze. Maybe coffee will help cure that. The medal will be numbered, so we can look up the exact details of the incident, but apparently what I've been told time and time again is during this air raid, a friend of his got basically buried beneath the rubble of a brick wall, and he dug him out and then noticed an incendiary bomb very near either petrol or ammo. Picked that up, ran like the devil was behind him, and disposed of it before it went off. And I mean, I seem to remember in his personal diary of the time, it's just medal presentation today, and that's all he says. It's a common trait amongst men who win these high orders of bravery that they don't talk about it. It's a common trait amongst soldiers in general. It's a common trait amongst men, whether they've served in the armed forces or not. And I was thinking, because I mean, statistically, apparently 80% of my audience are male. So, hello ladies, you're outnumbered here. Unlike in my house where I'm the outnumbered one. Michelle and a female cat. But it's all right, as Michelle has pointed out, she's outnumbered by Aries. I'm an Aries, so's Ilex, our cat. So's her mother. She's everywhere. She says she's surrounded by bloody Aries. I still sit in the healthily skeptical department when it comes to astrology. Are we influenced by the planets and the moons, or do we just read what our star signs traits are and behave in that manner? That's a debate for somewhere else, really, but if anybody wants to debate that, feel free in the comments. I probably won't join in, but I'm sure someone else will. Knock yourself out. But, yeah. Excuse me. Still really snotty. I know it's not COVID because Michelle's got all the testing kits because of the job she does. Yeah, all I really remember of grandfather, because he died when I was about 12. My parents still lived at Park Road back then in Needham Market. We had an open fire, which brings back wonderful memories. And I remember being so upset that I was in the bathroom and we had an old tin paraffin heater about 3 or 4 foot tall, because there was no central heating in those days. We're talking the early 80s, I think, maybe even late 70s. I wasn't much older than 10 when he died, 10 to 12. 10 minutes to midnight, rock. And I was so upset that I backed into this thing before I'd gotten in the bath and burned my arse. I think I've still got the mark somewhere. But, you know, only very privileged people get to see that one. So, yeah. As for my younger brother, he's got a lot of stuff going on, but his total blanking of me does get very hurtful. I realise over the years he hasn't given me, I haven't given him much cause to trust him. Trust me. Get it right, Howard. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. Loose cannon, I think, is how my younger brother thinks of me and always will. And certainly since his divorce, the definitely one young lady, well, alcoholic bitch actually, and he'd agree. One woman he was with didn't really want him to have any associations with his extended family, but was very possessive over Brandon's children, which his ex-wife, who he does have a reasonable relationship with, wasn't very happy about. So that caused a lot of friction. But he did end up leaving this horrible, bitter woman because she was turning into the kind of person who sits there at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, downing a bottle of vodka and then getting very nasty and bitter and venomous. And it's sounding like there's shades of a different kind of possessiveness with his recent one. And I'm wondering whether that has anything to do why he still won't speak to me. Because it would fit the pattern, and he himself has admitted to my mum he's beginning to wonder. I texted him last night to ask if he was okay, but he never replied, which is something he just does. I mean, but this lack of communication means it's very difficult for us to cooperate when it comes to mum. Sometime before Christmas, he, on a Wednesday, which is normally when I go down to see her, he basically was taking her to a hospital appointment. He, despite me trying to communicate with him, hadn't bothered telling me. And he knows darn well he may have forgotten, but the Wednesday ritual of going to see her has been a thing since father passed. So it's been a thing for over a year. So he should know that. And I think he does, to be quite honest. And basically the Tuesday night I spoke to mum, and she suddenly remembered she had this hospital appointment. I was like, oh, nice of Brandon to tell me, mum, but thank you. So I will not see you Wednesday. Maybe I'll see you Friday then. I thought, well, yeah, I could have turned up, not known where the hell mum was, and been none the wiser. And I tried to communicate to him that we need to communicate more, but he still doesn't get it. I do not know why. Certainly he seems more communicative, say, after 10 o'clock, maybe when this current lady has gone to bed. Possibly, almost like he's sneakily communicating. But even that hasn't happened lately. Because from the sound of it, she's starting to clamp down. I hope that's not the case for his sake, because about the time when father was ill, he just started seeing her. So they've been seeing each other over a year now. And he's just moved in with her. He was renting a place. And now he's moving in with her. And I think, well, he's starting to see danger signs. And I would really like him to communicate with me, but it's really up to him, isn't it? Nothing I can do, because if I force him, he'll just clam up completely. That's happened before. And that frustrates me so much more than just this gentle lack of communication that can be quite difficult. When it comes to mother, yeah, I don't know. Not as funny as folks, as my mother always says. Yeah, my mother's got quite a lot of folksy Suffolk wisdom that she comes out with. Because her grandmother was pure Suffolk, her family were pure Suffolk, but my father lived all over the place, so I've got a reasonable mix of genes there. Yeah, some inbreeding jokes. But yeah, I know I need to keep Brandon sweet till the inevitable happens, it will make sorting out the house afterwards much easier. But it grinds my gears sometimes. He probably finds me just as frustrating as I find him. It's why we generally restrict communication to text. He finds me a lot less hard to deal with via text than he does phone calls. And he doesn't like the fact that I realise this, I think. He's like, no, it's cool. I'm thinking, well, why do you never answer your phone then, Brandon? Why do you engineer it so we hardly ever actually speak on the phone, and it gets down to via text, which so easily can be misunderstood yet again? He's not the communicator I am. I mean, sometimes I miscommunicate and screw it up. Reading facial expressions and body language is something that sometimes mystifies me. I mean, it used to be, when it came to relationships, that a girl would literally have to stick her tongue down my throat before I realised, oh, I'm in there. I didn't even notice, the subtle signs that quite a lot of humans would pick up on. The amount of times friends would say, you're really in there, or whatever, That's autism ADHD for you, apparently. But I'm comfortable in my skin, comfortable with who I am. There's some people that need to be a lot more accepting, and now I feel comfortable. I feel as though I have. Oh, look at the angle of the corner of the roof there. I am the horned one. It's rather good, isn't it? Rather well shot, if I may say so. Total accident. Everything I do is just tricks and impromptu. That's what I'm good at. Anyways, how do we conclude this? I think better communication all round is something that human beings need to develop. Because not all the time, but a lot of wars, I think, happen due to miscommunication, misunderstandings that build up and up and up. Very much like various clashes I've had with my younger brother. The communications get stressed and frustrated, lines fracture, mistrust. And the next thing you know, two people are at it, and clashing and conflict arises. And this, tragically, is a lot of human history. We need to get better at that and not do that and communicate properly. Communication is the key to understanding and the key to, I think, the whole human race moving forward. I still hope. We ain't done yet. As well as being shitty and ignorant, human beings can also be wonderful, amazing, adaptable creatures. And we need to get a lot better at being wonderful and amazing and adaptable. We are all out there, but many of us never climb to positions of power and influence simply because the world is not made for us. But if you're feeling this, which I think some of you out there are, find your place. We have to work bloody hard to do that. I've had to work bloody hard, and I still work bloody hard. And yet again, I think a lot of people with no imagination seem to think I sit on my arse on the sofa like this all day. I'm at a chip volunteering. I'm walking in Christchurch Park. I'm chatting with neighbours. I'm building a case against Shitbag Steve. Shitbag Steve, Shitbag Steve. He's like you wouldn't believe. Drunk on sofa crying. Crockery goes flying. I've never known a shit as big as it. There's my little ditty. I will eviscerate you on the internet, you horrible, pockmarked, ugly, short-assed, alcoholic, bad haircutted, whiny-voiced, little waste of oxygen. And he's down there somewhere. He was basically begging his other half not to call the police on him the other day, apparently. He's been seen by the neighbours wandering around in the garden, and Paula Longstaff, our neighbour and a good friend of mine. Hi, Paula. My other half was walking out yesterday to come and meet me down at where I volunteer. And Paula came out and she went, "Right, Michelle, you know, your neighbour is upset you at day." That's why I like Paula. She says it like it is. If you were being an idiot, she'd bloody well tell you. And this is one of the keys. Surround yourself with good people who understand and are on your wavelength, and the magic can happen. Find your place. Find your particular brand of madness and magic. Use it and strive for success. I hope that message at the end reaches some of you and makes you think. Find your talent, find your place. This world was not made for us. We have to make this world ours, but make room for the normals. We need them too. Don't turn it into a war in your head. Communication, understanding can lead to beautiful things. Peace. He says, waving a sword.